Hello, and welcome to another weekly reading. The oil that we have, which is a little blend in here, is a combination of sandalwood and vanilla, and that is a rose quartz on the end. We have some shells because this week Venus moves into Pisces, which is a place where Venus is very happy. So this is a wonderful, creative, artistic, gentle, muse-like space for Venus where she is extremely happy. And I just want to remind you that Mercury has been traveling through the sign of Pisces. And at the end of last week, he moved out of Pisces, where he wasn't super happy, into Aries. And a lot of this reading feels very infused with that energy. This particular week, he's moving pretty fast through Aries. Aries is a fast sign. And by next week, he's going to come into his pre-shadow of his retrograde. So it's kind of the last week we have of full forward flow of planets, even though we won't be retrograde yet after this week until the 1st of April, we will be in the shadow. So I just want you to have this imagining that you are free diving and you're under the water and you're swimming. And at first it's really beautiful. You're appreciating the under the ocean views. And then you realize you need to breathe, but you've swum down a little deeper than you realized. And this is kind of how you can envision Mercury in Pisces. Now he's got to get up to the surface and he has no air in his lungs and his mind starts to think about all the worst things. And the longer he is kind of without oxygen, the harder it is for him to think clearly and rationally. That is kind of why he doesn't enjoy it. But then, as he bursts into Aries, it's like he bursts up to the surface of the water where he thought he might never make it to, and he gasps in, and suddenly this oxygen and this the fact that he's survived this dangerous ordeal gives him a whole new lease on life. And now he is in the sign of Aries, a fire sign, the first sign of the zodiac, the ram. He is ready to race headfirst into all challenges, almost like, when you just grab the bull by the horns. In this case, it's grab the ram by the horns because he's survived an ordeal. And suddenly he has forward momentum, he can breathe, he can think, etc. So with that in mind, as well as Venus being very dreamy and creative and muse-like in Pisces, so Mercury moved out of a place he didn't like and Venus moved into a place she does like. So this is two planets getting happier in the week. We're also still starting the week with a feel of that Pisces New Moon on Sunday. And of course, Pisces New Moon sets the tone for the whole lunar cycle. So there might have been a lot of deep feels and things to deal with over the weekend. Remember to pick a card between 1 and 4. And that's going to be your personalized sort of part to this reading, because it's not a personalized reading, it's a group reading, it's a collective reading. Whenever you find this reading, be it in the correct timing that I am dating it for this week that I'm referring to, or any other time, that is the perfect time for you. And please do like, share, follow, subscribe, etc. Let's dive in. Have you got a number? Here we go. Okay, here's the big picture. We've got two court cards on the end there. We've got a cups, a pentacles, a swords, and another pentacle. So we've got no fire in this reading, no wands. But with Mercury full steam ahead in Aries, a fire sign, I think we can feel the fire there. Now, the Nine of Cups is a really lovely way to start the reading. It's a very lucky card. It's filled with golden glow, which is a good indicator in tarot that it is a good card, a lucky card. And the Nine of Cups is sort of a dreams coming to fruition, wishes fulfilled kind of energy. In this particular deck, I love how this, it could be a man or a woman, but I always think of it as a she, but it could really be either, is kind of coming up out of the waters. And if you think again about the Pisces energy, Pisces is that oceanic energy, and we've got Venus there, and that radiating light all around her. She's dived deep, she's found the treasures, And she's kind of in this full flow of trust and faith and hope and all those things, that everything is kind of coming to fruition for her. And that's giving her a level of buoyancy. So unlike the feeling of Mercury realizing he needs to go up for air and then sort of panicking and trying to figure out up from down, just as the oxygen is being deprived from his brain. Remember, Mercury is very much about how we think. This is more of Venus saying, we've got this, everything's going to be okay, and allowing herself to float up rather than fighting to find the air. Because Venus is about attracting. So Venus doesn't chase, she attracts. She's not an aggressor. The sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, who is the kind of counterpart to Venus, is more of an aggressor. And so Mercury there sees us thinking more in the how do I get to the place I want to get. Whereas the Venus energy right now is kind of the polar opposite of being in flow and trusting in the process. So that's a really lovely way to start the week. But then we have the Five of Pentacles, which is a little bit of a sense of despondency and apathy and frustration. She's kind of just doesn't know how to get to the end goal. Every route she's tried hasn't worked. Remember, 5 is halfway to 10. So 5 is kind of like where we've really been putting in a certain amount of effort, and yet we can't see the end of the path yet. So halfway there, but we don't know that because we can't see the end. So it's that kind of point at which we're at a pivot point almost. Like it's critical mass. If we just push a little more with our dreams, with our hopes, trust a little longer, go over that next hurdle, then suddenly we've reached critical mass and we're actually starting to see things coming to fruition. We're starting to see that maybe all the work I've done has paid off, but this is the point at which we doubt that, and we're just not sure if we have the energy or the capacity, or if we're smart enough or strong enough or any of those things to get there. So she's really a bit down and out. And in actual fact, she's so in her head, Mercury, excuse me. She's so in her head about that she's just sat down and she's just feeling really sorry for herself and like she can't go on. But if she looked closer, she'd see she's right by a door. It's a somewhat disguised door, but not really that disguised. And there's a big old keyhole, and not so far off from that there is a big key. And so everything she needs is right there, but she's kind of just lost perspective. And maybe it's not exactly the way she thought it should be, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have the keys and the doors are not in front of her. And so it's kind of like, allow yourself, to have those moments, but don't get stuck there. And then conversely, we have suddenly the Knight of Swords who's bursting up. So it's almost like we feel that we're moving into the space of being in flow, creative, everything's happening perfectly. I'm attracting what I desire, to, oh my gosh, am I? It's the seesaw, And I think we all know that thing where suddenly we're like, no, but maybe not. Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'll never make it there. And that's where we get into that. And then suddenly that change of perspective seems to happen because we burst up and we sort of hit the ground running. And I love how he has a red shoe. I always feel into the red shoe in this card because it's grounding and the energy is actually shooting from the foot as it's lifted up and moving forward. The energy's pushing him forward. But actually today, the red shoe with Mercury and Aries, that fiery old Aries, is even more pertinent. And even though swords is air, not fire, so this isn't specifically very associated as an Aries card. I'm feeling it as such today because it's like Aries wants to ride a motorbike, not a horse. Aries has got the crossbow on his back, like fiery shoes, ready to run, and not really ever doing anything in half measures or slowly, is more like up and running. So from this apathetic point of, I don't know if I have what it takes, to suddenly just saying, come on, like in my case, it would be like, come on, Cindy, pull yourself towards yourself. And then suddenly this burst of energy and moving forward to save the day. Because Knights tend to want to come in and save the day on some level and slay the dragon. So it's to slay your dragons. I love dragons, so I don't, definitely that's metaphorical from the old fairy tales, because for me, dragons should not be slayed. But think of the dragons, your own dragons or your own demons, as the fears. And if you imagine having had Mercury stuck under the waters and unable to see clearly, and thinking that maybe there wasn't enough oxygen under there for him, to suddenly going, actually, I have the energy, I have the will. There's a lot of will in the sign, the fire signs, will to achieve, will to be, really. So this guy is up and running, ready to rescue whatever it is that you at one point thought you were attracting and flowing into, and at another point thought that you just would never get there. Now you're up and at it again. And that leads us to a king. So knights to kings, it's kind of like that younger masculine into the older, more mature masculine, which is telling us that there's that level of evolution that we end the reading with. So I really love the way that this reading flows in that kind of capacity of we going through the motions. Like, the reality is that we don't always feel in flow. We don't always feel like we are on purpose. Sometimes we have these moments. That is the reality. And remember, this is Pentacles and our king is Pentacles. So our toughest card this week is the Five of Pentacles. They're all upright. But this is for sure our toughest card. It's the point at which we want to give up, and then we don't. We jump back on our motorbike. We hit the ground running. We are going to achieve what we are setting out to achieve with that air. So even though Aries is not air, Mercury is very airy. And Mercury is in Aries. Oh, that worked well. And then King of Pentacles is now a materializing. The Pentacles is the element of earth. So now that I've gone through all the motions of emotional health and being in flow and trust and working with my emotional self, and then thinking I'm not building in the direction that I wanted to build for something concrete, and then changing my mind, getting up and racing at the thing that needs doing, going to rescue my dreams, you might say, and then finally showing that that's working. No, you're getting it right. That's the King of Pentacles. He's the wise man who has spent a lifetime creating his kingdom, and he has a really stable kingdom. You can see in just his body language, his posture, he's very relaxed. So is his wolf. He doesn't have a dog, he has a wolf. And his wolf is relaxed by his side. They don't feel like things are threatening. They are very relaxed and safe. He has many books in the bookcase. He just has achieved what he wanted to achieve. There is no big stress for him at this point, because he's made it and he's secured it and anchored the things in his life that he wanted to anchor. And so that is really, I think, the reminder. We start the reading with this trust and flow, and we end with this wise material kind of mastery. But in between, we needed to sort of drop off and lose faith a little, and we also needed to find it again. And I think that is so key for us to recognize that we will have these days. Not every day is a positive day. Not every day is a negative day. Neither of those things. Everything changes. That's one thing we know for sure. Everything changes. So rather than fighting it, roll with it. Take some time to feel. If you're in that slump, feel those feelings and then understand them, and then get back up again and hit the ground running. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll be back for another reading next week. Thank you so much for your time, and have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your week.